So yeah, I'm here with John Watts.
That's right.
So the new album is coming out quite soon, isn't it?
Yeah.
In
October.
October.
Yeah.
What's the name of the album?
Till the Ocean Overflows.
Till the Ocean Overflows. And can you tell us about what does that mean? What does that
Well,
reference?
the last album was called Swimming in Thunderstorms. So it's kind of connected. The title it represents political climates, but the actual album in itself is connected with. We had a Red Skies album, 8081, Red Skies of a Paradise, which was a very big record throughout Europe.
Yeah.
And that was basically about people stories, which represented that time really well. And this album is a mixture of people stories that represent the time now, and also I always deal with issues. So the title track of the album, Till the Ocean Overflows, is, some things are about climate. There's a song called Jews, which is about climate. There's a song called AI Owns You, which is about the fact that the perils of being taken over completely by artificial intelligence. And Dystopias here is a song that's sung only in ones and zeros. So you've got those themes, but the stories are set really by connecting things with it in Berlin.
Yeah.
I've written some unfortunate songs about the love thing recently, but, which I've dealt more with that. The point is that one of the things that's been a problem for me is that I'm a subscriber to the theory that many of the great pop songs, if you read the lyrics outside the music, they don't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
And I think some of the very, very best songs are like that. And I always thought that was quite difficult to get the stuff in, but I've been described. I mean, in America, I've done our So Long single from years ago. Was a quite successful MTV, but I was known as a poet, and I often feel that although I sing and I've got characteristic voice, and play guitar, that words actually really interest me.
Yeah.
And what has been said is that I reveal more. There's lots more in my words than there is in my life, and that's a recent thing that's been thrown at me. So yeah, and I think that's true. I mean, I write openly within the song, and you put yourself into other characters, and you do that.
Yeah.
But also the funny thing is, obviously, 95% of my success is in countries where their first language isn't in English. And if you're a writer in English, you think, well, that's a bit weird. But maybe it's because they're really keen. There's so many words, they get into it.
Yeah.
I mean, this record sounds like a band record, but it isn't really. And as much as it was started in Berlin as a solo record, where I did 8 of the tracks in one day. It's of tracks playing over itself. But then what we did, because of lockdown, that was supposed to be a solo album. But because of lockdown, everything got changed, and the band couldn't make the band album.
Yeah.
So we pulled together everything, and the band's contributions obviously came in, and I put those on. So it sounds very much like a band album to me. I don't know about
It does. Yeah. It sounds like
and
it's a band play. Yeah.
But it sounds like the band should sound in the.
So it's just all you, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Amazing.
You're a multi-instrumentalist.
Oh yeah,
You
but
play the drums.
it's not all me. There's no drummer on there apart from loops and me.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, for instance, the bass. There's 13 tracks. The bass player played on 6 of them.
Yeah.
The bass player. There's my guitar player played on about 6 of them. So and the keyboards too.
Yeah.
So there's contributions and the characters there, but essentially it's a solo album that turned into a band album.
Okay. Cool. So Berlin or Germany is kind of like your second home, isn't it?
It's influencing me in a big way. I mean, I've recently, girlfriend styly, been living in Hamburg. And also, Hamburg is probably more my thing than Berlin, but both those you can't really disconnect.
No.
But the politics, the music, we've made a film as well, which will be about a 27-minute film, which is, if people see the press blurb about it, you see the 2 album pictures being connected. I've used the same gentleman who was on the Red Skies album, on the other one to make that connection.
But I did notice on your gig itinerary that you are playing abroad, aren't you?
Oh
soon?
yeah,
yeah. So
I mean, the first gig, yes, but
not as much as you would.
What you mean? When you say it's happening, what happens is this. What I know that September the 4th is happening. That's a festival in Belgium. I know it's happening. I know London's happening on the 10th of September, which we want to get people to come to if we possibly can. And Manchester's happening on the 11th.
Right.
Now that German tour starts in the middle of October. But at the moment, what I know for a fact is everything gets moved. And the deal in the indoor shows in Germany is if the promoters can sell 40% of the tickets, then the government will subsidize the rest of the guarantee. That's the way they work in Germany. But nobody is, even the big bands are not, because people are scared to come out. So I'm honestly not sure whether that will happen. I can say that here because this is an English interview. If I say it in German, it'd be more.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that things will settle down eventually. It might take a bit longer, but I'm sure. Optimism. I've got to be optimistic, and hopefully,
Things will certainly never be the
out.
same again.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I was hoping it would draw down the biggies. I hope it would wreck the multinational record companies. I hoped it would wreck the glass ceiling promoters. But obviously, they've got a war chest, and it's wrecked the people we don't want to wreck. All my crews and stuff, I mean, our lot, there's been no subsidies either in this country much or in Europe for them.
And small traders in general, people who trade in Europe are hit hard.
Yeah.
It's a sad.
I mean, our setup's quite family.
Yeah.
I mean, the people on both sides of the fence. I've had 163 people in my band, I think, touring with me, who've done decent sized touring since 1977.
Right.
But this band it's like a band again.
Yeah.
Bands are defined for me it's only by the characters. It doesn't matter how good they are, what they can play. Having said that, they're all good players, but it's just a ridiculous combination of people, and I will certainly stick with it. As long as I can play live, I'll stick with a band. I'll stick with them.
Yeah.
And we've got such a funny mixture. Everybody else, apart from me in the Entourage, has an EU pass, which is why it makes us possible to play there.
Okay.
I mean, we've got an English bass player who's teaching Spanish in Madrid.
Yeah.
We've got a Croatian drummer in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
A German guitarist in Cologne, and a French keyboard player who works out of Brighton. And it's an extraordinary. And all my crew are Dutch. All our gear is based in Amsterdam. All the European stuff they drive with no problems.
Yeah. Back to the Red Skies album, because obviously there's a lot of Cold War stuff related to that. The cover artwork is kind of associated with that sort of idea, isn't it? Where we were living under the threat of nuclear annihilation and all that sort of thing.
I was picking up the issues that were big for the Europeans, because whereas other bands were bigger in England to start with, we got very successful in Europe first, mainly because of the management and mainly because we just didn't give it a chance. That record was just about to take off in England.
Yeah.
We were getting play on everything with Marlies, and I left the band. That was not one of my better moves.
You left your own band, basically.
Yes, I did like my own band, which is even more stupid, really. I should have had Fischer-Z tattooed across my forehead, then it would remember me.
Do you still? Does that feel like a regret now, even now, or do you?
Doesn't now. It would have done 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Somebody would say it would have been a bitter regret. I've always thought I'm writer and musician foremost, and everything comes second.
Yeah.
I've always said that, and unfortunately, I've said it to people around me, but I've realised that it doesn't. But it's taken me till 65 to realise that. And I'm hoping now that can, because I always get accused by the family and by close people that all this emotion comes out creatively in the work.
Yeah.
But I'm much more defensive and grumpy in person. So I'm going to try and.
I think that's what art is, isn't it? There was a good quote from Nick Cave recently about art is basically, the inner processes and the working out of who you are. The good art.
Yeah.
And that sounds. You might not necessarily talk about it with friends and family are difficult, aren't they? I mean, that's why when you see a counsellor or therapist, you don't go and see a friend or family. You see somebody who doesn't know you, But so it's basically where you can try and be as open and truthful as you possibly can.
It's like the Red Skies record. They were the Europeans' biggest issue. Everybody in Britain was obsessed by Thatcher. And as I say, well, the lefty type stuff, one thing I'm a big believer in is in practical politics. While we have Western democracies with people in government and politicians, while you've got that, to make any significant change, you have to get into government. And my criticism of the left is, like it always is, never unites. It's about issues, not about an ideology. Or alternatively, when they do put it together, like Star, where it looks so dry. And my kids' generation, I've argued a lot, actually more with my niece and nephews that are younger. They advocate. They'll go for the issues. They go for the green stuff. They go for everything else, and equality. But you've got to have if you're still working within a Western democracy, you have to have an electable policy. Then you make change. So I would say that they think I'm radical left. I'm not. My dad was a liberal politician in the nicest sense of the word. I'm sort of liberal, veering towards socialist stuff. Yeah, and I always have been.
Yeah, I was having a look at the old grey whistle test footage. That's quite something, isn't it?
Lovely.
Have you looked at that recently?
No, but I remember it. It's a very good representation. We were good on that.
Yeah, it's such a valuable piece of history, isn't it? Because there was very little.
Well, you see, because I left it, we didn't do the big one. We did the first 2 years, and the biggest album in Europe. Because one of the reasons I'd done we were supposed to do 27 shows in 32 days, which is still quite heavy. Because it was successful, they filled out every day off. And that's why I got pissed off and left.
Right. Okay.
In front of 80,000 people at the Inter football stadium. I said, I'm going to
What did you do? Just walk off, or did you throw something?
I'm going to play Twist and Shout in C.
Yeah.
What? Started Twist and Shout, played it. I said, I'm never going to do this again.
Yeah.
Top. And they thought it's Watsy shooting himself in the foot, and he'll be back. And stupidly, I didn't. But 2-3 months later, I'd formed a solo band and made another record, which was it. Yeah. In the extreme.
Well, you can only do what's in your heart, can't you?
I don't know.
So you might, if you carried on, you might have just gone. Yeah. It might have got worse and worse.
Absolutely. I have no patience at all. No. And that's why.
And I think just to have that period when you were pretty much in the limelight, weren't you? People knew Fischer-Z. You were having hits on the telly, Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
What was that like?
That was funny because the thing is, we went on with the worker, and I never liked the height thing. I sounded like the enemy said I sounded like a monkey on helium. I always felt it was a very
good old enemy. They don't mince their words. They're a bit harsh.
Mike Howlett produced our first album, the guy from Gong.
Yeah.
I never got on well with Mike. He produced lots of stuff like Orchestral Maneuvers and everybody else. He was a good producer. But it meant that the band were much, if you saw from Whistle Test, the band were much grittier than the production of the album.
Yeah.
And he, because I could sing higher than John Anderson, he encouraged me to do it. When we do that song now, I tell you what is really weird, Jeff. The good songs, even if they're from an era, are still good songs in a weird way. And that's not being, I'm not a rock and roll man at all.
No.
I've never been part of that lineage. I think it's bollocks. Not interested. I don't care who played what.
But you're a rock and roll, aren't you, in some respect?
I like to think of myself as an art punk. My heroes were George Melly, Andy Warhol, and
but you like people like Velvet Underground, don't you?
And, love it.
And some,
absolutely,
Who else?
But that's not rock music for me. That is where agitprop, poetry, cinema, art all come together. It's art. And it's a bit further around the art spectrum.
Yeah.
I mean, people like Brucey. I like Brucey. He tells good stories, but I can't tell which songs play it.
Who? Sorry.
Springsteen.
Springsteen.
I've no idea which songs play it. Oh, I don't know what that one is.
Yeah, they all
They're
sound
good,
similar, don't they? Yeah.
But with my stuff, there's everything between quirky early art punky stuff.
Yeah.
I did a big record which was very successful in Germany that didn't have my name on it, which was poetry and hip hop. And that would have been better if we put my name on it. We decided not to. And that was like sold, for instance, it was done through a really cool label. They said, what we'll do, you're big, but when you've been big, we'll make you cool. They did a limited edition of vinyls, limited edition of CDs, sold them all. Gave me the money, and they said, go make another one. I said, it's brilliant. I said, no, it's so much money, but we've only sold 10,000.
Yeah.
Said, John, we made 10,000. They've all been sold. You're cool as fuck. Go and make another one. And then I fell out with the management and the bloke I was working with, and it never happened.
Right.
And then I came back. If you notice, my music is informed by slightly different influences than most rock people my age.
Yeah.
You can hear that.
Yeah.
Those things are loops.
Yeah.
The loops. I was a drummer when I started.
Right.
15.
Okay.
I played Rare Groove. I did my first professional gig as a drummer in 1969.
Right. Okay. Rare Groove. Still don't really know what Rare Groove is.
Easy. Take a hip hop record.
Yeah.
Take the bar of the drums and turn it around.
Okay.
Just turn it around.
All right. I remember
That's what the guys did. And I found really funny.
But isn't it pre-hip hop? It's pre-hip hop, isn't it?
Oh,
so it's 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yeah. No, but the hip hop people took that.
Yeah. And they just scooped it around.
It's just scooped around. It's the same beat, the other way around.
Right, yeah. Clever.
And so when it first, I thought, hang on, I reckon this is type of beat. But it means that in my music and my band's music, everything, even the slow songs, have got a groove, an inherent groove. I think it's obvious actually on that record. I think it's pretty clear.
I need the groove with my music generally. I mean, occasionally I'll listen to, I don't know, Joni Mitchell or something very solo-y, like an early Neil Young song, just him on acoustic, but generally it's got to have a groove.
Also, the thing for me, I like things that are very something, very something. The only early albums I was drawn to was unlistenable shit when I was a teenager, which is brilliant. Unlistenable. Trout Mask Replica.
I couldn't. I've tried on countless occasions, and
you can't listen to it for that.
No.
But I mean, Van Vliet's a genius, and then you get people like, and in the right cases, you get someone like The Fall.
Yeah.
And that's unlistenable, but I really love it. It's got a trademark. But
And
when
it
you
has
get
got a groove
great
sometimes, doesn't it?
definitely.
Yeah.
But the modern artists that do it for me, I mean, what the greatest phenomenon I've seen in modern music is the meteoric rise and the sheer brilliance of Billie Eilish. I find that I think, oh my God.
Yeah, I'm not particularly familiar.
Genius.
I need to
Genius.
familiarize.
I mean, the record that sold the first millions was made by her brothers, very skillful musically.
Yeah.
And they've been artistic kids, brought up like Steiner School kids.
So they're the real deal.
Made in their bedroom on a 4-track. It's got imagination beyond belief.
Right.
And she's scaled it up too, which is clever. And I like Lana. I like Lana Del Rey.
Yeah, I like her. I really like her.
She's genius. She's like Joni Mitchell and somebody else rolled into the modern era. But not the woman to go out with.
No.
Definitely not. But I mean, again, I can go for things like with other popularist music. I'll go for Adele until the band comes in.
Yeah.
The first minute of every single is mind-blowingly good, and then it becomes schlock, and I get really annoyed. I've got much more time for Sheeran than anybody else has because he's got a terrific sense of rhythm. That's the best live show I've ever seen in my life.
I remember you said that when we talked before.
Yeah, and the other one was John Martin in the early days.
Yeah.
With his tapes and stuff and his legs. And when he had his legs, both legs, that was good for a guitar player. But I like originality. I like veriness.
I'm totally with you on that one. And that's basically that's what you are. That's who you are. And that's what kept you driven.
So. I think it's
more art than
it is. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm always influenced by what's going on at the same time, and bits you nick, obviously. But I mean, what I look at, I don't sadly, I read lots of newspapers. And so in doing so, you can always see what people think is a bit groovy. You can see it. I buy the 3 newspapers, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
And I get the Mojo magazine, which is about the only one left.
Yeah.
So you get that's medium and old. And then you spot things. They have sometimes young and groovy people on like the Guardian Guide. And so they'll put their top 10, which is unrecognizable by anybody, even them.
So you've still got your finger on the pulse.
You have to.
Well, so many grumpy old men like me.
And I don't
not like me, but a lot of my friends would go, it's not like the old days, or it sounds just like them in 1985 or whatever.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Shut up.
It doesn't. I mean, the thing is that I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of hi-fi. I mean, I like lo-fi stuff.
Yeah.
For me, it's just as relevant to record something and I've done it on a phone and put it out. What I loved about, and I was very proud, what I loved about the Jack White stuff, I like Jack White.
Yeah.
What I'm proud about is that a Dutch interviewer was in his studio, and he'd interviewed me the previous week, and he'd come to do Nick Cave here. Then he went to America through Jack White, big German.
Yeah.
And when he said Jack White said, "Man, what have you been doing since?" He said, "I've been to Brighton, and I interviewed Nick Cave and another bloke you won't have heard of." And he said, "Who was it then?" And he said, "It was John Watts in his band called Fischer-Z." Oh, fuck. And Jack White trotted off and he came back. I've got a record, Real Life. Did you ever hear that? Real Life is Good Enough. It came out in 2002.
No.
And I did, first life record was called Real Life is Good Enough. And the second one was called It Has to Be.
Right.
It was 2-piece.
Yeah.
With me and Sam Walker. And we.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I know that. Yeah.
Do you remember that? And we were doing 2-piece at the same time as the first Black Keys girl came out. And obviously Jack White must have clocked it because they were told that was a European 2-piece.
Yeah.
That record's a great record, Real Life's Good.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of it.
Must revisit that.
Again, see, that was between names. At that stage, I can't remember whether it was John Watts, Fischer-Z, John and Sam, Toilet Parts. It could have been anything. And that was a problem. I mean, artists now can call themselves Lavatory System. And the next album, they're called J Dingo and the Woof Woofs. And it's acceptable and people follow them. But in our day, they didn't. If you didn't have the label on it, and you weren't a train spotter, journalists knew normally.
Yeah.
But even though the journalists will say it on the radio, because the people go in the shop and they look for the thing, and it's not in the rack that they expect it to be. They used to put all the John Watt stuff in the Fischer-Z. Weren't interested. People just thought it was the wrong record. Names are everything. Brands are everything. And these days,
probably even. It's always been like that, isn't it? Really?
It's been shocking recently, though, because in as much as I always thought, because if you play to, which the band does, if the band goes to an audience indoors, I call that medium of 1,000 in most places of Europe. Some people call that big, but it's medium. Yeah. It then means if I go and play, you must come and see one day a Fischer-Z solo gig. It's the noisiest thing you'll ever see solo.
Well, I was going to ask you
I played a metal
if and when you were going to play in Brighton.
Yeah.
But,
Well, what's interesting, the last night I have never met the bloke that runs the Albert before.
Oh,
And
Will?
yeah, Will.
Yeah,
I've never
yeah.
met him before.
Ah.
Because Kurt Brandon was a big friend of mine. I was with
Oh,
Kurt.
yeah.
So when he came out, I was talking to him, and Kurt says, "Why don't that?" I don't know what the rest of my team, as Mr. Mason would say, but that size venue to give it a really good go for the Fischer-Z solo thing is probably ideal. 50, 60.
You got to do the Albert. God,
I'd love to do it.
and
I mean, I'd like to do that.
It's a lovely venue.
But what I've got
Great
is,
sound system in there.
yes, I've got a guitar though that most people don't use. It's a mixture of it. I'm not a technical person.
No.
And I used to be harangued. So I used to do trade magazines. I'd say, which chord guitar do you play? So it's a blue one. Because I'm that sort of person.
Yeah,
And the amps
don't ask me.
But with this guitar looks like an electric guitar. And
Yeah.
it plays like one.
Right.
But it's got all sorts of twiddlies in whereby you can twiddle it and it sounds just like the most beautiful acoustic.
Okay.
So the variation between pretty, as a drummer, so many people play solo, they're wankers. You get the singer from the band, he can sing. Stick him solo, unless you've got great rhythm, a solo act is, wow, you've got to be a brilliant piano player.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you need, if you get, there's you must have heard the Ray Charles story of live performance.
Of what?
Not the one we can't talk about. The Ray Charles study. Ray Charles' study of live performance. I'll tell you half the story. I can't tell the rest of.
Okay.
He used to select his backing vocalists to let's say prepare him for the stage in an unusual way.
Okay.
By shaking hands with them, and he'd feel their wrist, and by feeling their wrist, he could tell what kind of build they were perfectly.
Right.
And he'd pick the one that he liked from a wrist, and she would be privileged to spend the 15 minutes with him before he went on stage. So that was the only way I can tell that story. The second Ray Charles story. That's true. I know. Not. Yeah, but I know that because Steve Ford, who works with me as an engineer producer, he was Ray Charles' engineer producer for 10 years.
Yeah.
So, it's true. The other story about Ray Charles, he said when you play live, he said you never put two fast ones together. He said play a fast one, then a slow one, then a medium one, then a fast one. And I always did that anyway by instinct, but it's a great piece of information. Have you been there when you think, oh, for fuck's sake, what's going on here? Sorry, the frog says, as you say.
That's all right.
You say that to my 3-year-old.
We can swear.
Yeah, go.
Can't we?
But the idea of, the variation is what you need. And if you can hold a solo show which I can, for 75 minutes.
Yeah.
Also, I'm very rude to the audience. I don't necessarily play full songs because I don't feel like I'll stop. And the thing is that, especially on your own, when we began with punk, in punk clubs, entertainment was a rude word. Now entertainment's a better word. In fact, you've got people coaching people to entertain. You can't, actually. You can coach people to play and to perform, public speak. But entertainers have got it all. They
come naturally, yeah.
And I love that. So from doing a few of the online things that I've done, if I do online things, it's nice to actually do it to people you can interact with, actually, like on a Zoom.
Well, I'd definitely come to your live solo show. Sure.
We maybe get to the London one, even a London show as well.
So, yeah, I'm glad you met Will. He's a bit of a legend. He used to run the Free Butt. And anyway.
Really? Because I played the Free Butt when...
I don't think he always...
Was the Free... Oh, no, the Free Butt was over there. I'm thinking of the one... There used to be a venue before you came to Brighton, which was on the sea... It was called Alhambra, I think. And it was...
Hambury Ballroom?
No, the Alhambra. It was actually a pub. Right. And so when you played, your drummer's bum was in the window of the... So as people went past, you could see the drummer from the back through the window. Yeah. And that was the one we all played with, the Piranhas and those kind of people. But the joke was, I didn't know the London lot because I'd never lived there.
Yeah.
I didn't know the Brighton lot because I was never in Brighton. I knew some of the Berlin lot and I knew some of the Paris lot. But that didn't... I'm meeting people now, Jeff, which is ridiculous. I told you I'm not part of the model at all. But I'm meeting people now, like Kurt Brandon, I only met for the first time about 10 years ago. He's a friend of a friend. Yeah. They said, and I said, well, you've never heard of us. He said, look, everybody of that era knew who you were, knew what he was on Fischer-Z. But they said, we thought he was a psychopath. I said, no, I was a psychologist. They thought I was a psychopath because there's a tale of several quite gruesome fights over the years. So that's going on. And they liked the music. And more ridiculous than ever, journalists, the mob that are older than you, much older than you, all that mob was so rude to us. I've met them since, and they actually liked Fischer-Z. I said, well, why were you rude about it? So we had to be then because you were kind of smart and arty and not spunky. Yeah,
but Sounds was my favourite one for a period. That seemed to be a bit more.
Like that all the time. You feel it.
Yeah, They had a bit more of a punky, edgy,
Yeah.
alternative vibe.
Yeah. I've still got articles from Sounds. Well, I made the ridiculous quote that gave us a bad name in England. They said, "How would you define yourself?" I said, "Middle class, pseudo intellectual art form." And that's what you didn't do in those days. You couldn't be smart.
You mentioned the fact that you were a psychologist,
Yeah.
and I was actually curious about this when I read that, and that's what you were studying, wasn't it?
Clinical psychology.
Is it something that you just decided you just weren't interested in, or
No, it was a degree. It was a degree I was interested in that would fund me through while I was playing punk clubs at night.
Okay, brilliant that you're still doing it,
Yeah.
and I love the fact that you're really interested in people as well, and some of your work is very orientated around people's stories.
Yeah.
And is what the most this new album, is there any of that in there?
Lots of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
it's not just about
talk about.
It's not just about you. It's not all about you, is it?
No,
Some of it's about you. Some of it's about other
people.
people.
Yeah,
other people's stories. Yeah.
I think that. Yeah. I mean, obviously, with a single, the same boat. What I wanted to do was say that people are obviously not in the same boat with respect to COVID. It's bollocks.
Yeah.
And so there was 3 different people archetypal people I made up. Yes, there's those sort of stories in lots of cases. The danger is when you get very close and personal with different songs, and they affect people so deeply around you. And that's been an experience of mine recently that I never would have dreamed of, and it's been difficult.